This episode was brought to you by Pentester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. I'm Marley Oxenholm from Pentester Academy TV, and welcome to our show, Access Point, where we spotlight cybersecurity companies and give an inside look at the people and technology behind the latest advancements in the industry. Today, I will be speaking with the company inCyber Security. I'm sitting down right now with Erik Kellogg, who is founder and CEO of the company. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of great questions here from our tech team, so you ready to get started?
I am.
All right. So first question, can you tell us about the founding story of the company? Who are the founders and why did they decide on this idea?
Well, the founding story was really the bottom line. It was regulatory driven. Compliance. My entire background really has been entrenched in the financial services industry, as well as the other partners. And, we've all had a taste of entrepreneur life. We know what that was like. But at the time, we were all working for corporate firms. And then the SEC particularly came out with a big rule set and guidance on what registered institutions need to start having in place for cybersecurity. And because of my background, reputation, my network, got inundated with calls. And basically, we had clients before we even had a company name.
Really?
So I grabbed a couple of partners and said, "Hey, you guys interested in doing this?" And that's how it started. And so I've been growing ever since.
That's incredible. And just for the viewers at home, when you say compliance, can you explain what you mean exactly?
Sure. So basically, the government is telling certain firms that in our space, the financial world, if you're managing a certain amount of money that are investors' money, so the public's money, if you have a certain amount, the government requires you to register with them to make sure you're not doing anything bad, no Ponzi scams, all that. That's their way of keeping on it.
Gotcha.
And typically, they've never cared about cybersecurity. But obviously, with all the breaches in the news over the past few years, and it's obviously a growing concern among the public, the government has decided to take it upon themselves to take that under their wing and watchful eye as well. And so, in our experience, they're still learning as they go. It's still very fresh as far as the SEC, FINRA, CFTC. Those are all very financially focused firm regulations. Not so much for the banks. The banks have been dealing with this for a long time.
Right. Okay.
But again, where we come from in my career, in our backgrounds, we've dealt with specific firms, specifically hedge funds, broker-dealers, trading firms, private equity. Yeah. And so, again, these people were managing billions of dollars. They knew they needed a server and some email, but they had no idea what cybersecurity really was.
Right.
And you would think that the IT firms managing the infrastructure for them would have it covered. But again, without really any stress on it or any real importance put on it, it just always flew under the radar. Right. So again, now that the government now is telling these firms, if you want to keep your registered status, you need to start abiding by these particular guidelines.
That makes sense.
And that's where we come in.
Okay.
Trying to basically take this entire guidance from the SEC or from these regulators and applying those to specific financial company operations.
Okay.
So, obviously, a lot of your viewers know already that there's a lot of it's based off a NIST framework. But again, a hedge fund COO has no idea what to do with it.
And it's really blown up over the years, especially too. It's become more important.
Yeah. And again, they started with this big overlay. Every year they come out with they focus on certain firms and they say these are the specific things we're going to focus on, and that could be anywhere. Last year, the big one was penetration testing, but more about vulnerability risk management was a big one. And so what they found was a lot of these firms were doing pen tests and vulnerability scans, but they weren't following through with the remediation efforts.
Okay.
We did it. We checked that box, but
what then?
What are you going to do about it? Right.
Okay.
So.
And now, what would be the elevator pitch for inCyber Security?
I'd say we are somebody you would call to not just be your outsourced CISO, but someone who would really centralize and take accountability for a firm's entire cybersecurity framework and structure. So that would be a quick 15-second breakdown.
Very nice. Yeah. Simple. I like it. And what would you say sets you apart from other competitors?
I'd say it's based off the fact that we have our own proprietary risk model. Yeah, it's built off of many factors, including industry standards, compliance, regulatory guidelines, and real-world experience.
Okay.
Being able to take that, because of that risk model, allows us to translate the risks and the weaknesses we find into dollars and cents business language.
Okay, got it. And I know you touched on it briefly, but can you talk in more detail about your pen testing services?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, I think we have some of the best pen testers in the world.
That's
I'll put that out
yeah.
there, Kyle. Yeah. And then,
Nice.
But again, beyond that, we'll part of it is educating our clients. Again, not just financial. We see this all over the place. It doesn't matter the industry. Pen testing is becoming a buzzword. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know what pen testing actually means.
Yeah.
So they think a pen test is the same as a vuln scan or vice versa. So the first thing we like to do is discuss that a pen test is different. It's valuable in certain ways for a lot of the clients we work with. It's more valuable for compliance reasons because a lot of our clients have simple infrastructure. They don't have these crazy, complex, multi-site, all over the globe connections. Some do, but being able to explain what that is compared to a vulnerability scan. But then, I like to work with our clients and not just sell them the most expensive pen test they can get, which is social engineering. If you give us that option, we're almost always going to get in. If you let us attack your users and go the human route, but being able to again explain different levels, work with them on that. But we don't ever let our pen testers start an engagement unless they understand what the business does. In our opinion, if you don't know what the business does, you can't know all of its weaknesses, even if it's just a scan, really. So I would say that helps describe our pen test service a little bit different than most that we've seen.
And since you have a pen testing background, how have you seen pen testing change? And would you say there's a greater need for pen testing services now?
I think the need has always been there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just nobody knew what to do about it or really where it was. It's just because of all the breaches and everything, it's gotten more mainstream. People can now Google pen tests and their friends are talking about it. I think it's just more mainstream, but I think the need's always been there.
Yes.
I think how it has evolved is you can no longer just be somebody sitting behind a desk running a bunch of code. I really believe you need to understand the business risks and be able to talk to your client about what those are, what the risks, what each individual risk means for their particular business. Every business has its own acceptable risks, so something that might be high priority for one firm or company might be super low for the other, depending on what their business type is. And I think that's where the change is evolving, but needs to continue to do that.
Okay, got it. And now, what impact does the role of an end user have exactly?
Overall, no matter how much pen testing you do, and risk remediation you do, in our view is that it's always going to come down to the end user. Almost always, I suppose. I mean, patching levels and all that, internal operations, IT work matter.
Of course.
But given that if we're allowed to include social engineering into our pen tests, the end users are almost always the reason we can get in. And so having them trained up properly, ongoing training, relevant training is so key these days. I mean, so many people just click through that boring CBT, computer-based training, and check the boxes, and everybody's rolling their eyes, so nobody takes it serious. So I think with proper training, I think the end user is probably the most important part of any infrastructure.
Yeah, and relevant training too. I like that.
Yeah.
That helps.
Gotta be relevant, yes.
And now I know obviously cybersecurity has become a major concern for small and large organizations. How are most organizations vulnerable to attacks, and what are the first steps companies should take to secure themselves?
I think, again, this kind of goes back to the last question, is your end users. You're going to be your first and last line of defense. Pen testing needs to happen to make sure that any kind of obvious technical weaknesses, there's always new 0 days coming out. You always have to test for them.
Very true.
Our pen testers, a lot of them write their own tools to get around a lot of the different defenses we come against. So you should be still doing definitely pen testing and vulnerability scanning and management. It's still huge. But I think users is where it's at.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the social engineering and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And now, what industry or companies do you guys mainly work with?
We started in the financial services space because of my background and the other partners. But since then, we've brought on some other senior partners. Name for one is Mike Thoma, heavily involved with HIPAA and healthcare regulations. So he's got a lot of experience with healthcare companies. He's worked with big retail like McDonald's and a few other CVS, I believe. So we have a lot more. We're branching out a lot more. We've got a lot more experience brought on as well. And so, when he brings on guys, he looks for kind of experience in those realms as well. So dealing with all different industries. You got it all. That's
wonderful.
Right. There's nothing we won't touch. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
So.
And now, what does your company roadmap look like for this year?
Just continue to grow. We're working on some new proprietary software that's going to deal a lot with cybersecurity specific compliance.
Okay.
That's really going to basically be an add-on, but as well as a standalone product for what we do. But yeah, just maintain growth. Keep trying to change the view of the cybersecurity community that we have to help business owners and executives understand the risks and get above beyond just throwing jargon out there. That's really what our mission is going to be for this year. But as a company, just continued growth.
Wonderful. Okay. And lastly, are there any other things that you'd like to highlight about the company?
I would like to highlight the fact that we approach every engagement and client in the sense that we feel that every firm should be and can be cyber secure, cyber compliant if need be. And the way we feel that to do that best is being able to make cybersecurity relevant through education mostly, but that's educating end users all the way up to the executives. Training for the end users, making it a relevant business discussion for the executives, and inCyber is really good at doing that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's all the time we have for today, so be sure to tune in next time for another episode of Access Point. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook so you don't miss out on any of the latest cybersecurity news. This episode is brought to you by Pentester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.